When I got the call from Pastor Randy last night that he wanted me to share a little bit, and I just began to think about what today is celebrating. Fatherhood. No, I'm not a father. I've only been married like 10 months. So I don't know what it is to be a father, but I know what it is to be a son. Or at least I've tried to be a good son. And I just began to think about what a father and son relationship looks like. And the best place you can always go back is to Scripture and take a look at the way God views himself with us. And all throughout Scripture, you can find different passages that talk about the spirit of adoption. You can talk about how God calls us his children. And I was reading 1 John chapter 3, verse 1 and 2 last night before I went to bed, and it talks about how we are his children even whether we know it yet or not. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it just takes us finding him for that revelation to come through, because he considers us his children whether or not we understand it, whether we know it. And I began to think about the relationships in my life. Fatherhood. Yes, I'm obviously have a father because I'm standing here before you, or sitting here before you. But I began to think about, for those who aren't fathers, there's the physical father, and then there's, spiritual fathers, and even there can be women. I think of single mothers that have been the father to their kids. I think of, people that I know personally that have just raised their kids unbelievably, completely by themselves. And I really believe that fatherhood can be a mantle that you take upon yourself. And if you look through Scripture, you can find the father heart of God and what he thinks about his children. And that becomes something that we take upon ourselves. And I think about the most greatest spiritual growth I've ever experienced in my life wasn't because I was just reading my Bible by myself or went to Bible college or anything like that. My greatest spiritual growth came under my spiritual father, who's in this room sitting on the front row with a torn MCL, Pastor Randy. Pastor Randy is my spiritual father. I remember coming off the road traveling with my family for years, and I really didn't know what it was to live my Christianity, because I'd been just trapped in a bus with my family doing ministry, and so ministry was my life. It wasn't recognized as an actual thing I was doing, or my relationship with God wasn't an ongoing thing because I was in church like 24/7, 5 days a week. Like, it was crazy. But Pastor Randy became my spiritual father. He fathered me through things, and he didn't, bear me as his child. He took me under his wing, and it was the relationship that he chose to draw me into, where he was going to mentor me and bring me along. And I'm in ministry now because of Pastor Randy. I had no desire to go into ministry after traveling with my family, just because years and years of doing it. And Pastor Randy, being a spiritual father, he wanted to instill a legacy in those around him. And I remember the day he left the embassy, not the day he left the embassy, but we threw a thing for him when he was leaving. And I remember thinking there was like 200 people that showed up to it. And it was like generations of kids and leaders that had come through. And you could see that he was a father to all of these people. Like, he had raised up these people. And Pastor Randy, I want to honor you in front of everybody here, is that those days are not forgotten in my life. And I know they're not forgotten in everybody else. And on how you raised us, you and Jen pouring into everybody. And I want to make sure that you're always honored in that, because now that you're fathering this new chapter, but there's still those kids that call you father, and we call you blessed. And one thing that you instilled in us is a legacy of love. Are we leaving a legacy of love? And I think that's the truest heart of a father, is am I leaving a legacy of love for my kids? And that example is set through us, through God the Father. He sent his son to set that legacy of love that we could follow in his example. And I think today the best thing that we can look to on Father's Day, whether you're a natural father or not, is that you can have that father heart of God that says, I want to love those around me and love them unconditionally, because that's what a father does. He loves unconditionally. And whether we realize, whether those people around us realize that we're loving on them like that, they don't need to acknowledge it. They'll recognize that they're being loved, but they don't have to recognize the father heart of God relationship. They'll just recognize that there's something about this person that changes things. And being under Pastor Randy, it taught me so much. I remember times where I was like, what the heck are you doing? We were at Wonderland. Sorry, I'm going to go over here really quickly. But we were at Wonderland one time, and it was the day of the 4-day blackout in Ontario, where everybody lost power, steaks were melting. It was a terrible thing. But we were at Wonderland when the power cut out, and I was one of the leaders, so we're separating, whatever. And I got bottles of water for literally everybody, and I took the last one. And I walk up, and Pastor Andy's was like, "Did you get water for everybody?" He's like, "Is that for me?" And he takes it on my hand. I was like, "Oh, that was the last one." He's like, "Okay, go find another one." And I was like, "What the heck? That was the biggest jerk move ever." And I look back on that, and I realized, Pastor Andy was always doing things to push us to figure out who we were, and that was a huge growth moment for me. And I always remember that. It's not out of bitterness. It's out of, he was seeing how I would react, to different things. Would I honor him in the place of authority he had? And it's just stories like that. And if we have somebody in our lives that does that for us, or we're doing that for other people, I want you to acknowledge those relationships, because the father heart of God is very real, and it's evident in so many things throughout Scripture. And more than anything, I just wanted to honor you today, Pastor Randy, on Father's Day, because you are my spiritual father, and to so many other people.
I wanted to say thank you for being here, and honor you too. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of your life, and how it's taken shape, and your leadership now. And the one thing just to say to everybody here in this room is that, in order to leave a lasting legacy for others to follow, you have to have a living legacy now. Not waiting until you've moved on, or you've gone to another place, or you've passed away and gone on. It's your living legacy now that will create a lasting legacy for the people that are around you. And whether it's for one person or more, and it's always in our view. It's always in our view, my living legacy right now. I'm living it out. And I had that opportunity to watch my dad just do that and say, rather than tell me how to do everything, he just lived it. And we need to do the same thing. And so I'm proud of you, and thank you for being with us this morning too.
All right, we're going to do one last song.
A party time, YouTuber, party time, YouTuber, party time, yeah, party time, YouTuber, party time, YouTuber, party time, woo! Gonna make videos, gonna get lots of subscribers, gonna make a Facebook page and make my titles all caps, gonna write a parody and maybe cover a pop song, and auto-tune my voice. Gonna make a video about making a video. Gonna have a title sequence, maybe try a daily vlog. Gonna get my video selected for the YouTube homepage. Wait, they don't do that anymore. I think a computer does that. Beauty, gaming, vlogging, singing, top 100 product placement.